The following is a special presentation from WSFA 12 News. Live from the state capitol, this is the State of the State Address.
Good evening, I'm Mark Bullock. Welcome back to the Alabama State Capitol. I'm just outside the old chamber of the Alabama Capitol, where we will hear from Governor Bentley in just a matter of minutes now. He will give his State of the State address outlining his agenda for this 2013 legislative session, which got underway earlier today. You can see where there are members of the legislature filing in as we speak. I believe the governor is just behind them. There he is right there. He'll be speaking on a number of issues. Both sessions, or both houses of this session, were gavelled in just a matter of hours ago. Not a lot of action so far in the legislature. This is always one of the first major events of each session. All of the lawmakers waiting to hear from the governor, allowing him to lay out his agenda for what it is that he expects and hopes for them to do over the coming months across the street at the Alabama State House. We can point out that there was one bill passed today in the Senate. It was a resolution memorializing the Dale County school bus driver, Charles Albert Poland Jr., who we all know was shot and killed last week while trying to stop a kidnapping on his school bus. That little boy who was kidnapped, 5-year-old Ethan, is of course safe and sound tonight. We're told the governor may mention it later in his speech. Let's listen in.
Lieutenant Governor, Speaker Hubbard, President Marsh, members of the Alabama Legislature, Chief Justice Moore, members of the Supreme Court, and my fellow Alabamians. 50 years ago, our great state stood poised on center stage as a series of historical events unfolded around us. This city, this very building, and many in this room would bear witness to events that changed history. By year's end, Alabama would see many peaceful protesters jailed for daring to advocate equal treatment for all people. The University of Alabama would enroll its first African American students. 4 little girls killed inside their place of worship during Sunday school. The rising up of thousands who marched to this building, knowing that they were endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That was 50 years ago. And today we are ever mindful of our turbulent past, while we eagerly look forward to a new chapter in our state's history. Alabama is our sweet home. And we want it to be a place where economic opportunity abounds, and there are good-paying jobs, where children can get a good education, and where counties and cities can build roads to compete for businesses and industries, and where millions of dollars of taxpayers' dollars are not being spent, but are being saved. Our state is making great progress. Jobs are coming. We are cutting costs and living within our means, all without raising taxes. Unemployment is down to the lowest level that we have seen in 4 years. Over 26,000 new future jobs have been recruited to Alabama in the last 2 years. Industries from all over the world are choosing to make their home in our state and have invested more than $6 billion in Alabama in 2012. One of those industries is forever changing our economic landscape. In July of last year, I was so proud of our state as I announced the news that we would begin to assemble commercial aircraft in the state of Alabama. Airbus, headquartered in France, will build airplanes in Mobile with the skill and expertise of Alabama workers. And from the time we break ground on construction of the assembly plant this spring to the first delivery of the Airbus A320, over 3,000 Alabama workers will have had a good, well-paying job that they and their families need. Just 2 months ago, we announced the first Airbus supplier located in Alabama, bringing 50 highly skilled engineering support jobs. And this is only the beginning, as we expect additional suppliers to make their way to Alabama. From the state's largest cities to the smallest town, nothing is more important to me than putting people back to work, like the people in Hackleburg. This spring, I will be privileged to help open the doors of the Wrangler plant in that town. The plant was such a symbol of heartbreak and devastation nearly 2 years ago. But as the statewide rebuilding continues, the Wrangler plant now serves as a symbol of hope and economic opportunity for families in Marion County. Because of my steadfast commitment to recruiting jobs for the people of this state, I have had the privilege to attend dozens of jobs announcements during my time in office. And whether it's 50 jobs in a small town or 1,000 jobs in a large city, every job matters to me, and especially to that person who will go back to work. They are the men and women who make up Alabama's greatest asset, and that's our workers. Because of the hard work and dedication to their jobs, Alabama workers are highly respected among the world's leading manufacturers. I've seen it myself. As I've visited our plants and our factories, I've watched how products are made, vehicles assembled, and services rendered with great pride and terrific skill. I'm proud of our workers, and we should all take pride that the products rolling off of the assembly line will be stamped "Made in Alabama." Last year, cities and counties across the state were finally able to begin much-needed improvements to their roads and their bridges. We launched the largest road and bridge improvement program in Alabama's history. ATRIP, the Alabama Transportation Rehabilitation and Improvement Program, allows counties to make much-needed repairs to roads and bridges. As of this week, 439 road and bridge projects have been approved. 61 of Alabama's 67 counties are seeing their roads repaired and their bridges fixed. $614 million in projects have been approved. Everyone benefits from ATRIP. When companies build new factories, they look for areas with good roads and bridges. ATRIP is giving them what they need. Now, for those remaining 6 counties which have not participated in ATRIP, help is on the way. We will soon announce details that will help those counties to participate in ATRIP. Every single county in Alabama will be given the opportunity to participate. Last month, we launched a statewide effort to bring education and business together so that our workforce will not only be well-trained, but also highly skilled. I created the College and Career Ready Task Force. And I want to commend Dr. Tommy Bice, our State Superintendent of Education, Dr. Mark Heinrich, our Chancellor of Alabama's post-secondary system, members of our State Board of Education, and university leaders. Together, we're all working to make sure that students are offered the tools they need to compete for a highly skilled job as we recruit industries. Business, industry, and agriculture will advise us concerning skills they seek in a workforce. Educators will be able to tailor their curriculums to meet the demand. The results will be a constant supply of high school and college graduates who have the skills industries want. I believe this effort will not only produce skilled workers, but will also decrease the high school dropout rate. Alabama's workers already have the right attitude, and they have a strong work ethic. Now, by providing even greater skills training, our state will be able to offer any industry a workforce that's second to none. In November, Alabamians gave us the ability to be even more competitive by voting to approve Amendment 2. This amendment allows us to compete with other states in recruiting major industries. And I want to thank the people of Alabama for giving us the ability to bring more jobs. Our entire state works as a team to recruit industries. This is why Alabama is consistently ranked in the top 10 nationally for our business-friendly environment. And we do that in a team approach as we try to recruit and retain industry in this state. Alabama's economy saw some of the most dramatic improvements of any state over the last 3 months of 2012, when factors such as total jobs, unemployment, total wages, and hours worked in manufacturing are combined, only 4 states saw stronger growth than Alabama. But in Alabama, we aren't satisfied in being just in the top 10. In Alabama, we want to be number 1. I don't want to hear a Roll Tide or a War Eagle, right? There are many things that allow us to recruit and retain businesses in this state. One of those is our low cost of energy. And we're able to maintain that because of the natural resources that we have in Alabama. And this includes coal. It includes natural gas. It includes nuclear power and hydroelectric energy. And I will not allow anyone, not the federal government, nor any other agency, to stand in the way of the use of those natural resources. Thanks to the efforts of our legislative leadership, the members of the legislature, and our lieutenant governor, we are holding true to our commitment to right-sized government. If Washington wants to know how to fix the nation's budget crisis, they need to look no further than the example set by the states, and especially the state of Alabama. While the federal government is in debt over $16 trillion, We have identified more than $750 million in savings for Alabama taxpayers in just 2 years. My office, working with this legislature, has brought about real reform within state government, and we are well on our way to identifying $1 billion annually in savings by the end of next year. We made a promise to the people of this state to right-size government, and we're living up to that promise. It has not been easy. We've asked a lot of our state employees and our teachers who have shared in the sacrifice to keep our budgets balanced and provide necessary services for our people. Mostly through retirement, state government now operates with nearly 4,000 fewer state employees than we had 2 years ago. Our promise to the people of Alabama is to run this state as efficiently as possible without raising taxes. Today, I can tell you our 2 state budgets are slightly better than they were last year. And everyone in this room deserves credit for a job well done. But we have a promise to keep. On September the 18th, we asked the people of this state to allow the transfer of $437 million from the Alabama Trust Fund so that we could keep Alabamians working and provide essential government services, and they did. The yes vote by the people allowed us to create a bridge to prop up the lack of funds in the general fund while we continue to cut costs. And we must honor the trust of the people who supported the September 18th amendment. I said when we passed the amendment that we would pay it back, and that's exactly what we're going to do. The first bill delivered to my desk must be one that requires repayment to the Alabama Trust Fund. If you will send me that bill, I can promise you I'll sign it very quickly. We must keep our word to the people of this state, and we must pay our debts. When I took the oath of office, I swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Alabama. I am and have always been a strong supporter of that Constitution. The Constitution is what our nation and our states were based upon when they were founded. I believe we are endowed with certain freedoms by our Creator, and that the Constitution serves to protect those freedoms, such as those guaranteed in the Second Amendment. All amendments are important, but I certainly believe that people in America have the right to keep and to bear arms. The 10th Amendment, which guarantees those powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states or to the people. It is the people who give power to the states. And let us be reminded that as our country was being established, the states created the federal government, not the other way around. I will always firmly uphold these truths, which are self-evident, that all men are created equal, that all are given by their Creator the right to life, to liberty, and to the pursuit of happiness. The most vulnerable, the most helpless, the most abused, and the most oppressed, the elderly and the ill, and especially the unborn. Everyone has been endowed with the right to a life, and I will do everything as governor to protect those who cannot protect themselves, protect our freedoms guaranteed by this Constitution. Never before have Alabama students had greater access to a quality education from kindergarten through the 12th grade as they do today. We will continue to fund the Reading Initiative, AMSTI, Distance Learning, and Advanced Placement. Each program has shown positive results. But we must give children a chance at success even before they reach kindergarten. Alabama's voluntary pre-K program, once again, is ranked #1 in the nation by the National Institute for Early Education Research. But Alabama ranks a disappointing 33rd in the nation for pre-K access. Just 6% of our 4-year-olds in Alabama are enrolled in first-class pre-K. That is why I am asking for increased funding and expansion of voluntary pre-K programs. Administered by the Office of School Readiness, local voluntary pre-K programs may apply for grants, but will be required to meet certain criteria. They will also be required to produce real results. We must close the achievement gap. Children and schools must be given every chance to succeed. And I truly believe by allowing greater access to voluntary pre-K education, we will change the lives of children in this state. Now, there are schools in Alabama which are chronically failing, and we must address and turn them around. If local school boards are not serving the academic needs of our students or being good stewards of tax dollars, the State Department of Education must have the authority to step in and manage the day-to-day operation of that school district. We will take action to change schools that continue to fail, because our children deserve better. Principals, teachers, local school boards, and the community, those closest to the students, ought to be empowered to make decisions that affect students. We will give school districts flexibility without infringing on the rights and responsibilities of our classroom teachers. No one knows better how to best serve our students than the ones who see them and educate them every day. Next to their family, the most important person in a child's life is their classroom teacher. Last year, I formed a teacher cabinet, and I've benefited from spending hours listening to their concerns. Most of the educational agenda that I've laid out came as a result of their suggestions. Our teachers truly feel called to their profession. They are dedicated to our children, and they work hard. And we should thank them every day for what they do. I want our teachers and support personnel to know how much we appreciate how hard they work. That is why I am recommending a 2.5% pay raise for our teachers and for our support personnel. As our economy improves, I expect this increase to be the start of what we hope will be even greater and more frequent raises for our teachers. We also will make sure our teachers and our students are safe and protected. The events in Connecticut of last December and the events in Alabama just this week are a grave reminder that protecting our schools and ensuring the safety of our students, our teachers, and our bus drivers should always be a top priority. I've asked the Department of Homeland Security to develop a strategic plan for preventing and responding to incidences of active shooters. Through use of training, technology through Virtual Alabama, and public engagement, we hope to prevent tragedies from happening. A Homeland Security hotline is now posted on the Governor's Office website. Anyone can call that number and report suspicious activity. Calls are anonymous and are connected to the state's intelligence and information sharing operation. Our state has made great progress in the past 2 years. There is so much for which Alabamians can be proud. And many of these milestones would not have been possible without the hard work of the men and women who serve in my cabinet. They are the ones on the front lines, facing the challenges of a difficult budget. They are the ones who deal with the federal mandates. They are the ones providing essential services with fewer resources. Let me tell you just a few things that they've done to save money. By reducing energy costs in all state departments last year, Alabama taxpayers saved over $4 million. Alabama became the first state to implement an online license and tag verification system. And that's expected to save hundreds of thousands of dollars and decrease the number of uninsured motor vehicles on the road. State agencies are switching to paperless methods, saving millions of dollars. Taxpayers saved over $4 million when Alabama became one of the first states to run a successful E-Verify system as a governmental agency. Members of my cabinet are working to increase economic development. Alabama's tourism industry grew last year to a record $10.5 billion. Pent-up demand and record sales for Alabama-built vehicles has caused our automobile manufacturers to increase production at Mercedes and Hyundai and Honda. And here's what they've done to serve our fellow Alabamians and to improve our quality of life. We continue the long recovery from the 2011 massive tornadoes. Over 4,000 individual safe rooms have been approved, and over 200 community safe rooms are being installed. Through the state's first program for all-inclusive care for the elderly, long-term health care services are available for the elderly. Many are able to receive care at home. Alabama saw its lowest infant mortality rate in history. And the teen birth rate has gone down. We're developing programs in which students with disabilities are able to gain valuable hands-on workplace training so that they can have a good job. A record number of children in foster homes have been adopted into loving permanent homes. Since 2011, the Alabama National Guard conducted approximately 55 separate mobilizations for 2,400 soldiers and airmen supporting the war effort. Members also served in the northeastern part of the United States in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. And last year, the first female was promoted to Major General in the Alabama National Guard. Now, these are just some of the significant accomplishments that we've seen just in the last 2 years. Thanks to the cooperation and the dedication of the public servants gathered here tonight. And I want to ask the members of my cabinet to stand so that we can thank them for a job well done. So, tonight is the state of the state. What is the state of our state? It's good. It's good because our people are good. Like the people of Dale County, who wrap their arms, their loving arms, around the family of that true hero, Charles Poland, a bus driver who gave his life to save those children. For greater love has no one than this, that a man should lay down his life for his friends. And like the people of our state and nation who anxiously waited and prayed for the safe return of Ethan to his family. And like our law enforcement men and women who were patient and persistent with their planning for the right outcome. Please join me tonight in thanking them for a job well done. In Alabama, we are a people who work hard. We help our neighbors in time of need, and we gladly serve our fellow citizens. We also proudly defend our nation and its freedoms as soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. I want to do everything that I can to make the lives of our citizens better, our communities stronger, and our children safer. 50 years ago, the eyes of the world were on Alabama. Let's invite the world to look at Alabama again. And let's show them a state that works together, one that innovates and creates economic opportunity for all of its citizens, regardless of color, regardless of gender, regardless of politics. A place that we can all call Sweet Home, Alabama. May God bless all of you, and may God bless this great state of Alabama.
State of the State Address for 2013. The theme, you might say, a look at how far our state has come, both physically speaking, in terms of right-sizing state government, in the governor's words, and socially speaking, in terms of civil rights. He reminded the audience that it was just 50 years ago this year that we saw the Selma to Montgomery Voting Rights March. That was the year that we saw 4 little girls killed in the bombing of 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, and it was the year that we saw the first black student enrolled at the University of Alabama. Our own political reporter Max Reese is joining us now to talk a little bit more about the speech. And Max, what about it do you think stood out in your mind?
The governor really focused here on some of the major issues that the House Republicans are going to focus on, this theme of we dare defend our rights. The biggest applause we heard in this chamber was the governor said that the United States government was formed by the states. It was not the other way around. A clear message there about conservative values in this state. The governor also had a major, a big round of applause when it came to asking for additional funding for pre-K.
That was one of the largest applause I could hear.
Oh, it was tremendous in the chamber. That's something that many people in education have been calling for years. As you can see, members of the state Supreme Court leaving behind us here, asking for additional pre-K funding, a very big deal. That's something that hasn't really happened, at least in the last 3 education trust fund budgets. And by my count, Mark, this is a 34-minute speech with 29 stoppages for applause. So very popular, lots of ceremony here. A very popular speech, but also the governor didn't mention Medicaid once. This is more than 50% of the state's budget. We would have expected something on that. It appears he might be leaving that dirty work to the legislature to figure out how it's going to fix that massive state program.
The governor did mention that he had identified $750 million in savings over the past year, and he says we are well on our way to identifying $1 billion in savings by the end of this year. That sounds like a lot of money to trim. What are experts saying about those numbers? Do you find them accurate?
In some parts, absolutely. That the fact is the state has eliminated some programs, it's eliminated some staff. However, we're also talking about a little bit of creative accounting here. You know, money not spent is considered money saved. Mm-hmm. So getting into that, it's a little complicated. However, the governor wants to trim government. It's also worth mentioning here as well, the governor says we value every job in the state, and then goes on and touts 4,000 jobs eliminated through state government. So, you know, the governor with a pointed message today. This is a conservative state. This is a state that we're going to do everything we can to defend our rights, so to speak. The state's motto, we dare defend our rights. You know, and it'll be interesting to hear how state lawmakers receive this speech as we move forward over the next 4 months.
After he mentioned the 4,000 jobs, state jobs cut, there were applause I'm assuming because that amounts to a cut in state government, but that was a very weak set of applause because it does mean that there are as many as 4,000 people without work.
Right, and as the head of the Department of Labor, Tom Surtees, has said, you know, when we talk about the unemployment rate, you know, if you've lost a job, it's just a number, unless you're the person who lost your job.
Exactly.
You know, but also the governor touting many measures by his cabinet, his teachers cabinet, of course, to look at specific education issues. Big stuff the governor covered tonight. A very wide-ranging speech overall, Mark.
Political reporter Max Reese joining us here in the Old House Chamber of the State Capitol. Thank you, Max. We want to talk a little bit more about some of those conservative values that Governor Bentley brought up tonight with a Democrat. And joining us now live is State Senator or State Representative Joe Hubbard of Montgomery. And Joe, thanks so much for being with us.
Good to be with you, Mark.
A lot of the controversial aspects of that speech had to do with political issues that have been controversial for years now. Abortion, gun rights, that sort of thing. The Republican Party has said that those are two issues that it will address or try to address this session. Where do the Democrats stand on the Second Amendment, gun rights in Alabama, and abortion?
Well, look, Mark, the Democratic Party is a big tent party. You can ask 100 Democrats, they'll give you 100 different answers. I, for one, support most of this legislation that's coming forward that my Republican friends are backing. But let's be clear about this. This is feel-good legislation. It's not going to create a single job in the state of Alabama, and it certainly is not going to balance the budgets. And I think this feel-good legislation is nothing more than a screen to hide the single biggest failure of this administration and the Republican leadership in the House, and that's to balance the budgets in the state of Alabama.
Do you believe that gun laws need changing in Alabama? There have been some pro-business groups that say no, they really don't.
Well, and that's interesting, Mark. You bring that up. They say we dare defend our rights. Well, if you're going to defend something, somebody's got to be taking it away from you. We have some of the strictest gun laws in the country here in Alabama. And I think the same can be said for our abortion laws. They're pretty strict. And so at the end of the day, this is feel-good legislation that is meant for nothing more than the election in 2 years.
Well, you brought up the budgets, and the governor said in his speech tonight that the budgets are better off now than they were 2 years ago. How do you feel the state is, financially speaking, going forward?
Well, Mark, look, the budgets are the single biggest challenge the governor has before him, and us as a legislative body have before us. The governor, I think, bragged about the fact that we are 4,000 state employees less in 2013 than we were when he took office. There was some applause in the crowd. Look, that's not something to be proud of. At the end of the day, our state employees have been working hard to do the job that we have asked them to do with less money, less resources, less pay, and less benefits. And they have not had a raise, a cost of living adjustment in 5 years. In fact, their pay has gone down 5% under this administration. And he has offered only a 2.5% pay raise to teachers. What about the state employees? What about the retirees? And when you're down 5%, you get 2.5% back. You're still down 2.5%, Mark.
The governor said he wants the very first bill that arrives on his desk to include a clause that says that the state will pay back that money to the Alabama Trust Fund. Do you see that happening, the very first bill including that?
Absolutely, Mark. And look, I commend the governor for his position on that. He signed the bill that did not have a payback provision. That was J. Love's bill. J. Love brought the bill, no payback, and now J. Love's bringing a bill suggesting that we as the legislature pay this thing back over the next 15 years at $5 million a year. It was a $437 million loan. No interest paid back, Mark. You couldn't get, as a small businessman, a loan like that from a private lending institution. What message does that send to the people of this state whose money we took because we couldn't be fiscally responsible last session? It's not a good message.
The Democrats now in the minority in Alabama's legislature. It hasn't been that way for a long time. Tell me, how do you see the two parties working together in 2013?
Look, Mark, there's a lot of room for us to work together. We all want to see hardworking Alabamians have jobs. We all want to see this economy grow. We want to see our budgets balanced. We want to see Medicaid fully funded. We want to see state government efficient. But let's not be confused. Right-sizing state government does not mean laying off hard-working employees of this state. It does not mean laying off teachers. It means cutting out the waste, cutting out the fraud, cutting out the abuse, making our government transparent, making it accountable, ensuring that every tax dollar is accounted for and wisely spent. That's something I think everybody in this chamber can agree on.
I think you're right, and I think the citizens of Alabama would wish you the best of luck to both parties. Representative Joe Hubbard joining us with the Democratic response tonight, live from the state capitol, where we have just heard Governor Robert Bentley's State of the State address, the first major action of every legislative session. Things will begin in earnest tomorrow morning with committee meetings in the State House, and of course WSFA 12 News will have you covered throughout this session with the latest from inside our legislature. I'm Mark Bullock on behalf of all of us here at the state capitol and at the station. Thank you for watching this special coverage of the Governor's State of the State address, and we now resume our regularly scheduled programming.